has lost, to those who feel that there is not a glimmer of hope on the horizon. What do you say, Mark Elias?
We can't give up. We can't give up hope. The dictators, the authoritarians, one of the ways they rule is by making their populations feel hopeless. They want them to feel like there is no other way. And Donald Trump, he is a seller of hopelessness. You know, he wants there to be, if Barack Obama wanted there to be hope and change, Donald Trump wants there to be static despair. And we cannot give in to that, right? We have to always have hope. And we have to remember that whatever is in front of us today in the courts, there is always an opportunity for redemption. And
that is legal mind extraordinaire Mark Elias of Democracy Docket. He really is one of the superheroes of our time in his fight for democracy. And he actually said that last year during the election, but I never forgot it. And I pulled that quote out for such a time as this, because quite frankly, I needed to hear it again. Hi, my name is Suri Crowe, and you're watching the MeidasTouch Network. Today isn't so much as a report about the news or things that are going on. Not exactly. As much as a heart check, because I'll just be really open with you. I really struggled the last couple of days. The ICE raids terrorizing families, both official U.S. citizens and not, sending asylum seekers back to persecution in countries where in many cases they will likely face death where they were escaping from. Innocent, hardworking immigrants being chased down on the streets by masked thugs in camel gear with long guns. Just awful. And then all wrapped up in yet another corrupt Supreme Court decision. It just took a toll on my super empath heart. I am a huge empath, you guys. I'm not going to show you all those clips today because I'm sure Ben probably has. And that's just not the point of this video. I don't want to dwell on that today, not in this particular video. But in any case, I just felt super broken and, like Mark Elias said, hopeless, which is exactly the way the authoritarians and the authoritarian regime wants us to feel. Okay? That's how they want us to feel. Then I saw the ugly way that Democrats and leadership are treating New York mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani. And I was like, what are we doing to each other? You know, Democrat Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries refusing to endorse this guy who had this sweeping primary victory in his home city, New York City. And then Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who's just, I don't know, she's been really off the rails in the last couple of years. I don't know what's going on with her, but saying truly horrific things about Mamdani, falsely accusing him of condoning global jihad. He has never done that. Period. But then I also saw the best in leadership. Over the weekend, there was President Joe Biden in Minnesota, stepping in as consoler in chief, humbly lending his support. You can see him here shushing the crowd, so cute, as he enters the Church of Mourners in Minnesota, because they're excited that he's entering the church and snapping photos and probably talking too loud because he didn't want the attention on him. He knew that he was there to lend support, but the attention was to be about the Hortmans and their families and the people grieving, which is so polar opposite of the narcissist that we have in the White House right now. And it just really was so refreshing to see somebody say, no, this is not about me. I'm here to lend support, not to be the center of attention. And of course, Biden was there to give his hugs and his condolences to the many grieving the heartbreaking loss of Melissa and Mark Hortman and their beautiful dog, Gilbert. way even the honor dogs greeted Joe Biden at the memorial. I mean, dogs know good people. Look at the way the dog just jumps up and it's like reaching for him. Like, he is a good man. He is a truly good man. And seeing Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris there to join in collective grief with the people in Minnesota just gave me renewed hope, as sad as the circumstances are, that there are good people, that we can have good, kind, extraordinary leaders, that despite the evil we are experiencing in this country right now, that there are truly good men and women like Kamala and Joe, and we can get them back. You know, maybe not them specifically, but people like them, but we got to fight. We cannot give up the ship. And when I see hatred and Islamophobia being spewed about Zohran Mamdani, I see New York's highest elected Jew leading the way and setting the example for the rest of us by getting his back.
I mean, it's appalling. He has faced death threats during the campaign. A city council member called for his deportation. It's just gross, racist bigotry. But meanwhile, he's running an optimistic, upbeat campaign for New York where everybody belongs. And I feel proud as the highest ranking Jewish elected official in New York City to be supporting somebody who would be the first Muslim mayor. Like, what could be more New York City than that?
That, by the way, is New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, who was recently arrested for standing side by side with immigrants who are being wrongfully arrested outside of these courtrooms by Trump's ICE thugs. These are the kind of leaders that I want. I want Muslims and Jews showing us that we can be the best of friends, standing up for one another because we're humans, okay? And I'll leave you with this. I'm a big fan of Nicole Wallace, period, but especially of her new podcast. It's called The Best People. The brothers were recently guests on it, so check it out. Her latest drop features Abby Wambach, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist for the U.S. women's soccer team, and her wife, who is one of my absolute favorite writers ever, Glennon Doyle. Listen to this clip.
I think about it a lot in terms of how leadership and captaincy of our women's national team worked, right? And for the generations and the reason why our women's national team has found so much success, and I don't mean to diminish that, I don't mean to compare sport and fascism.
No, we'll take whatever we can get.
But I think it's an important thing to think about and for your listeners to consider. All of my teammates and I, we weren't all necessarily best friends. We would gather around meal tables. We would discuss politics. Politics ranged from every end of the spectrum. And yet we were still able to go on the field and perform at our highest and best selves. How are we actually able to do that? And one of the things that I think about is that we had this like one common thread that bound us together through thick and thin. And it was that we were here sacrificing our personal lives, sacrificing our bodies, putting ourselves at risk to win as a byproduct of representing this thing that was greater than us. And I think that we have lost sight in the democratic pro-democracy world. I think we have lost sight of, because everybody wants to just be the most right. And unfortunately, when you are in a team and you're trying to win, you all have to be a little bit less right in order to actually win. And I think that if we could kind of come to the tables, right, and get into one of your boats, but don't scream at another boat in your fleet going, you're doing it wrong. You're wasting energy.
God, get in my boat. Why aren't you in my boat?
Yes.
We need everybody in their boats. And the only thing we should be yelling at each other is keep going.
Yes.
Keep going. Keep going. We're with you. And then our job is to get more people in our boats. So let me just explain that if we're just bitching at each other and shaming each other for not knowing something that we just learned 7 minutes ago, nobody's going to want to get in our boat.
Right.
Right? Like we have, people do want belonging, and that's what MAGA does so well. I've seen over and over again in like cult vibes that people have two human needs, and one is belonging and the other is individuality and free thinking and integrity. And people will give up their integrity and free thinking and individuality over and over again to get belonging.
Bingo. They nail it. The "you're not progressive enough" or "you're too progressive" killed us in this last election. Well, that and some other factors. Stay tuned for that. But people refusing to vote for Kamala because she wasn't progressive enough. Well, now look at the mess that we're in. People who sat out or wouldn't vote for her, based on Gaza or the many, many reasons that they didn't. We're in such deep shit now because of that. And by the way, President Biden had one of the most progressive agendas of any president since LBJ. Yes, facts. Google it. Check it out. So when leaders in our own party are flame throwing at other people inside the tent, it is not helping. And I'm looking at you, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. Oh, and when people say, where is Barack Obama? Who's stepping in the void of Democratic leadership right now? I don't know. But Joe Biden was in Texas on Juneteenth, the holiday that Donald Trump says needs to go away. We need to get rid of Juneteenth and everyone needs to go back to work, coming from the man who has spent umpteen millions of dollars of tax dollars golfing 5 out of 7 days a week. I mean, that's all he's ever doing is golfing as America burns. You didn't see the press covering Joe Biden down in Texas on Juneteenth, but he's showing up. He's battling cancer, but he was there. He was in Minnesota this weekend. He is presidential at a time when we really don't have one. And that is leadership. That kind of grace that he and Kamala Harris showed this weekend, and Governor Walz and Governor J.B. Pritzker and Governor Newsom. Well, that gives me hope. That gives me hope. At moments when I feel like utter despair, I'm like, wait, we do have good people. We do have people who can help lead us out of this darkness. And like Glennon Doyle said in that clip, if I have hope, I can yell, keep going to all of you. So that's where I am today. Don't quit.
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 1 million followers.